Good morning, grand risings. This is Wake Up with Sonia Poulton, and guess it is exactly 9 a.m. British summertime. How are you all today? How are you? How are you? I hope you are fabulously well. I still have cold. You can probably hear it. But it's okay because I'm here. I'm here with my hot water and my lemon. And good morning to you all. Why is Craig still laughing about fat jabs? Did I say something wrong? Good morning. Yes, Crone. So many reported issues with weight loss jabs. Indeed. Hello to you all, you wonderful people. To Jacqueline and Katie and Greg and Crazy Bunny and Soul Sound, our two glorious mods, aren't they glorious? Hey, Maria from sunny Sydney, Australia. Yep, Randy. I've had a haircut. Absolutely. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. New hair, don't care. That's the whole deal, right? That's the whole deal. Oh, Randy, I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm better today, but I'm holding up. The aim is still to have a shorter show. You see how well that went on Friday. Yes, here's to another wonderful week, Daniel. Absolutely. No, Health Freedom UK. I am not feeling that much better, but it's okay. Do you like the new hairdo? Do you like it, Rob? Do you? Do you know what I thought? As a Leo, right, I no longer feel the need to have a mane. You know why? Because I have my raw. Yes, I do. Here we go, and here we go. Good morning. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Good morning, Edward. Good morning, Paul. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. It's a new life. Feeling good. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Soul Sound. Thank you, Merv. Thank you, Crone. Magic Mac. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's see the truth. Says back to the roots. I hear it. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here with me. I am so grateful. We have a busy show. Claire, it was an absolute pleasure to be at the UK Column Conference. Thank you. Oh, you little darling. I appreciate that, sweetie. I appreciate that very much. Simon says, grand rising, bitches. Stay classy. Absolutely. Stay classy. Yes, well, I'm trying my best with high energy, Crazy Bunny, but it's kind of like I've propped her. I'm basically propped up, you know, as well as anybody humanly can be. So many people under the weather. What exactly is in the weather these days? Exactly. On a plane, preferred my hair before. Never mind on a plane. The good news is it can always grow back. I just fancied a change. Marshall, have you got a cold? Yeah. Healing the Silence has been watching Graham Moore all over the weekend, and now it's ingrained in me to call myself English and not British. I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Right. Let's see what we've got coming up. Spycops, they are back in the dock this week. Bill Gates experiences a lawsuit loss. More details emerge on the death of former One Direction star Liam Payne. Charles and Camilla are heckled in Australia. My Australian cousins, I love you. I love you. Thank you, girl on fire. Doing my best, doing my best. Donald Trump worked at McDonald's. Well, for a brief period. Tommy Robinson returns to the UK for a weekend march. The Chancellor is set to invest billions in the NHS, but is it on what we want? I doubt it. And Olympian and jab promoter Sir Chris Hoy is diagnosed with terminal cancer. And not content with spying on bank accounts, the DWP now plan to take money directly from bank accounts if they suspect fraud. Can you imagine the chaos? Can you actually imagine the chaos? And I'll be talking with commentator Sunil Sharma about how left-wing activism seeks to make victims out of people who neither appreciate it or need it, frankly. All this, plus all the usual good stuff, your viewer emails and you lovely people on the live chat. We do news differently because someone had to. Yes, indeed. So welcome to the show. Let's see how long we can last this morning. Good morning, John from Coventry. Good morning, Shug and Christopher Drew. Grand risings, all you snack. What does snack mean? Good morning, Diana. Lovely to see you all. Marie Lowe, DWP. Horror, horror, horror. Yeah, DWP has, for a long, long time, actually put complete horror in people. I've talked to people who said that as soon as they received a brown envelope through their door, they went into some kind of shock. Diana, what I will talk about Reiner today, because I talked about Reiner on Friday. I gave quite extensive information about Reiner on Friday. However, I have an address today that you can write to him. Craig, I did laugh at Trump at McDonald's. No matter what you think of him, he does have comedic timing and skills. Yes, that's part of the problem. Right, UK column. They're on Saturday. Absolutely brilliant. UK column on location in Bristol, sold out, packed to the rafters, full of wonderful, wonderful people. And can I just say, the food was the best veggie options I've seen in a long time, which was really heartening. And the UK column team, of course, includes Brian Gerrish, Mike, Charles, Debbie, Cheryl, Ben, Alex, the whole team. They are substantial, but there isn't one who doesn't count. They're a phenomenal team. I was actually quite unwell this cold, which kind of makes my nose runny, coughing, feeling a bit faint at times, but it is just a cold, right? It is. And the day started off quite badly. My first train was cancelled, and I told and so I ended up arriving late, which I hate arriving late. I'm a good timekeeper, and so I don't like. So they had to kind of reschedule my spot, but they were very, very good about it. And so the first thing I said to the audience was, I was late. My train was cancelled because Heath, Jana, and Britton were working together to stop me coming here. Which, with that audience, they got it. They did get it. No, Craig, I've not had my, oddly enough, I've not had my COVID, flu, fat jab this winter. No, none of those, oddly enough. Anyway, so what happened at the UK column? Well, just such brilliant speakers, frankly. There was David Miller, obviously, talking about the Middle East and Zionism. Piers Robinson is absolutely brilliant. Bob Moran is fabulous. I was given this, and I'm sorry, lovely lady, I don't know your name, but you're so lovely and smiley. You're part of the UK column team. I was given this. It is actually one of the most beautifully, there's that year again. Well, that doesn't say it, but you know it's 2030. This is one of the most beautifully presented books I've actually ever seen regarding this issue. It's so good. It's one of those ones that you can pop on a coffee table and it won't look out of place. And it's so well done by Martin Edwards and in association with UK Column. And it is absolutely brilliant. And I intend to work through that this week and report back on Friday exactly what's in there. Brilliant book, though. Brilliant book. The other brilliant book that I received, and I'm deeply touched by it, was no, I don't have jabs, Robert. Not at all. Not at all. I was given this beautiful, beautiful book by the wonderful Bob Moran. It's edited by the rather fabulous Tanya Edwards, comedian, and it's full of Bob's truly, where am I going with this? Truly brilliant. Look at that. Just like truly brilliant. Oh my God, I'm all over the place. I like that. Truly brilliant works of art. Absolutely fantastic. Bob, I think, is a cartoon genius. I actually think Bob Moran is a cartoon genius, but he wrote a beautiful message in it for me, which I'm very touched by. You can see it. It says, to Sonia, thank you for being such an inspiration. Keep going. How lovely is that? But Bob, you are an inspiration. We can all inspire each other, can't we? That is a fabulous book. And it's one of those books that I intend to look through repeatedly when I'm like 80, 90 years old, living in my daughter's basement. And I will be able to reflect back on some of the wonderful people that I encountered in my years as a journalist and in activism. Bob's cartoons are amazing. The Blue Nomad. Absolutely. It is gorgeous, really. Bob is such an amazing artist, says Teresa. How are you, gorgeous Teresa? And it was just such a brilliant day. I mean, so brilliant, such brilliant speakers, well organized. I had to do a dash in and a dash out because I have a lot of commitments coming up this week, including legal ones. And so I couldn't hang around, but it was really brilliant. The period of time that I was there, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking with the audience who were fantastically receptive. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, MK has already had 2 texts from the NHS asking me for CV pokes. Still trying to turn me. Laughable. No chance, right? Not happening. I love Bob, says Christine Smith. Been to his show twice. Bought his book for hubby's birthday and have one of his sketches. I'm a fan, clearly. I think we all, those of us who like Bob Moran, we kind of all have a kind of favourite. My favourite cartoon probably still remains as the one of the mother standing in front of the child and protecting the child from the jab. And I love that. Thank you, Ian. Jennifer is listening while she's cleaning. I'm not feeling at all better, Jennifer, but I'm here. I showed up. I arrived. Yeah, Paul, I do plan to. We've already got it planned. We've already got it arranged. My daughter has promised that I'm not going to an old people's home, and that she's going to have a granny flat for me, where I can swing backwards and forwards all day in a rocking chair in front of a roaring open fire, and everything will be wonderful. Bob is the resistance, Simon. I appreciate that soul sound. I really do. Now, before actually, my first guest isn't coming till 9:30, so I've got a little time to work through these stories. Can someone spell the full name of Bob? What a question. Yes. What's that? Report the NHS to 7726. I did years ago and haven't received any more. Oh, is that a way to do it? Bill Gates behind bars is a great cartoon rock lover. Absolutely is. I'll be using one of Rock Lover's tweets later to ask you all a question. Right. I want to talk first of all about the undercover policing inquiry. Are you familiar? You might be more familiar if I say Spycops. So basically, the undercover policing inquiry is back this week to hear delayed evidence about, really, frankly, some of the most horrific and controversial events in the history of what has become known as the Spycops unit, but also actually more accurately known as the Special Demonstration Squad, SDS. Now, such a disgusting tactic. I don't even know where to start, but live hearings will start again today at 2 p.m. Witnesses, victims and campaigners will gather outside the International Dispute Resolution Centre in London at 1 p.m. and will be available to comment on the upcoming evidence as it emerges. This has been postponed twice and subject to delay because police and security services tried to keep vital material away from the public. You know, the kind of people and organizations who do that, right? People with something to hide. That's right. Jessica from Police Spies Out of Our Lives commented on this. The glimpses we saw during the opening statements of the evidence to come gives us an idea why the state wants to keep this stuff secret. These officers were sexual predators, and Met Police hid the truth from the children they fathered. Undercover officers acted as agent provocateurs. They rigged the justice system and lied to the court, spying on defense campaigns. They didn't just report on activists, they reported on lawyers, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and Circuit Judge Timothy Green. We already know the SDS was out of control, but that reached new heights in the 1980s, and that is the evidence we're about to hear. There were more apologies issued last week. The police apologised to victims of this abuse. Both the Met and the inquiry concede that the police behaviour was unjustifiable. Nevertheless, incredibly, the Met have asked the inquiry to conclude that some of their spying could be justified. So if you are not familiar, Spycops infiltrated activists and campaigners, primarily animal activists and campaigners, and sought relationships with the female activists, lied, obviously, about who they were, and even fathered children with these female activists. That's how far they went. It is shocking stuff. Shocking stuff. So let me see. The evidence hearings of this will run in January 2025. There is explosive new evidence. The fact is, police officers were sexual predators. Yes, they were. Many undercover officers and all the officers targeting animal rights campaigns deceived women into sexual relationships during their deployment. That is predatory. Yes, it is still going on today, Kat. I believe it is, although they wouldn't tell us that, of course. They groomed and deceived teenage girls into sexual relationships, including with virgins. This is unconscionable. These people need to be banged up. Charlotte Kilroy, the barrister on behalf of women deceived into these sexual relationships, described how officers indulged themselves in a wide range of fantasies during deployment that unleashed a range of dark behaviour for which they faced no real consequences. Officers fathered children. The Met hid the truth. Children have been left in the dark about their own father's true identity for 24 years. 24 years. It is shocking stuff. And officers committed serious crimes. Did the Met, for example, set fire to a department store and conspire to cover it up? That will be part of the evidence. Numerous witnesses allege that undercover officer Bob Lambert placed an improvised incendiary device in the Harrow branch of Debenhams on the night of 11th of July 1987. There was CCTV from the Harrow store which was recorded. It's now been obtained by the police. The original exhibits officer has a clear recollection of special branch officers, as they were called then, attending and taking custody of the exhibits of the case. After this point, of course, the CCTV appears to have gone missing. It's corruption on top of corruption. It is actually really shocking. They did the same in Milton Keynes, did they? Health Freedom UK. We get the blame for what these paid agent provocateurs do. Yes, we do, Kat. What their behaviour makes us all turn on each other. Edward, they do think we're stupid. I mean, it went on for a very long time because it's how awful to fool women into loving you, to giving birth to your children. This is unbelievable. It also seems that the police colluded with the government to subvert democracy, and none more so than around the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND. My brother was part of CND, my big brother, Bern. And I remember as a child, him taking me to protests. I'm pretty sure that one of the protests we went to for CND was a protest to Trafalgar Square, or was it to Piccadilly Circus? Anyway, I was only about 9 years old, but it left quite an impression on me. And the thing is, at the time that all of this was happening, guess where they were getting their orders from? Guess. It would appear that one of the major puppet masters of all this was none other than paedophile fancier herself, Margaret Thatcher, right? It would appear that a lot of the orders were coming from Margaret Thatcher, because what we do now know was that it wasn't actually the Secret Services. It certainly wasn't MI5, and it was her office that was involved. Oh yeah. No, Edward, there's like issues about whether it was actually MI5, and it would appear that it was actually far more her government than anything else. It's a big bloody club, Simon. Yes, Robin, absolutely. And it wasn't only just, women and activists who were targeted. Politicians were also targeted. Diane Abbott was targeted by them. The fact is, police acted as corporate spies on behalf of, amongst others, McDonald's. Can you believe that? McDonald's. Oh, yes. And talking about McDonald's, let us move on. So good luck today. Good luck with the hearing. Good luck with the evidence that is going to continue to unfurl. And let's stop this. Let's just stop this. Thatcher didn't just like Savile, Stephen. Thatcher literally surrounded herself with nonsense, right? Yes, Christine. Yes, Tamsin. Yes. I do believe Margaret Thatcher was a true villain. Absolutely. Which is why I protested outside her funeral. Yep, I did. McDonald's is closing 200 branches due to Israel boycott. Edward, is that true? Is that true? Because why not, indeed? And Soul Sound is saying, come on, fam. You know you want to. She's talking about liking. And can I just say thank you, everybody? Thank you not just for being here, but thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing. Thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for all your donations. I greatly appreciate it all. Ian Briggs said so many nonsense back then. Oh, is it historic though, Ian? Is it? And let's just have a look at that McDonald's clip of...
Now I have worked. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
Are you going to put this on your resume?
I never worked here.
Why would she lie about something like that?
Will be put on your resume.
Worked at McDonald.
Did you just hear him? Because I couldn't. Still nonsense in high places. Yes, there is. So obviously, Donald Trump. You did. Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate that. So obviously, what he says obviously is that he's still done. I couldn't hear it myself. I have to remind myself. Isn't he? He's saying, right, I've still done more work than Kamala, even in those few minutes. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. But I'm going to end up taking these off because there's something going on with my headphones. Love him or loathe him, Trump definitely provides plenty of meme material. He sure does. Let's take that off and hope for the best. The slow head turned to look at the person who had a Rizzler pack on them. What was that? What was that? It was actually funny. But you know, junk food sucks, David. You're absolutely right. And the thing is, obviously, he's just given a massive promotion, hasn't he, to McDonald's? But it is all a show. All the world is a stage. And Peter Morrison, don't talk to me about Peter Morrison, Ian Briggs. Peter Morrison was her parliamentary assistant, right? Her right-hand man. And she was told that Morrison was having weekend parties with young boys. And she did nothing about it. In fact, what she did was put him forward to become a sir. And obviously there was Savile. There was a number of people with allegations against them, Tories at the time, which was obviously Edward Heath, Daniel Lord Janner, rather, and who's the other one? Leon Britton. There was lots going on. And yes, Christine, Trump does support Israel. Absolutely, he does, which is why I could never support him, because he's really, they're Zionists. But listen, you know the thing about round here? We believe in free speech. We actually do. As much as YouTube will allow us, we believe in free speech. So moving on, Chancellor Rachel Reeves has announced that, as we know, the autumn budget will be taking place next Wednesday, the 30th of October. They've been making lots of scary noises, haven't they? Now, she's said to have signed off a £1 billion cash boost to the NHS to bring down waiting lists. And of course, we've seen over the last few days what they're intending to spend those £1 billion on, right? Because the fact is that for, got to be at least 20 years now, certainly from Tony Blair's days, they've been breaking down the NHS very, very deliberately. It's been a controlled demolition of the NHS in order to privatise it. And thank you, Angie. I appreciate that. And so it's been going on for a very long time. And bit by bit, they've all taken a chunk out of it. And whether that was, Blair or any of the prime ministers onwards. And what's that? Money does nothing in the NHS with all the waste, says John from Coventry. Yes, absolutely. I mean, the problem is that they spend it in ways that we don't approve, right? Money, money, money. And we know where the money is about to go, right? We know that. They're going to have a track and trace smartwatch. Yes, it's a track and trace smartwatch. The idea is that the NHS will give millions of these smartwatches and it's sort of wearable tech to track the health as part of Labour's 10-year plan to save the health service. Do me a favour. Do they honestly believe that we believe them? If any, sorry, let me take Trump off the screen. Why is Trump still on the screen? That's the only problem about running things yourself. You kind of forget sometimes. Excuse me. Do any of them think that we genuinely believe that a smartwatch is about diabetics being able to check their own blood pressure, right? Or anything like that? Absolutely not. I think that this is all part of the plan that will eventually, be part of a social credit score. Can you imagine? Because it's digital, because they want to get away from analog, obviously. But can you imagine that you step out of line? I don't know. You don't do your necessary steps throughout the week or something. And you get a beep, beep, beep. Miss Poulton, you won't be able to enter, I don't know, Tesco's this week because blah, 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 because they're linking it all up, aren't they? The smartwatches with obesity, right? So there's no way on earth, having just gone through C19, that anybody should believe that the smartwatches are there to reduce waiting lists for the NHS. Not at all. Not at all, right? The problem is, Wade, I tend to agree with you. Wade says, I reckon a big percentage would believe, especially the younger generations. Yes, younger, older, they're all at it, right? And of course, we've had Wes Streeting, horrible Wes Streeting. Can't stand that man. Really genuinely can't stand him. But of course, he's now health secretary. He said our 10-year health plan will turn the NHS on its head, more on its back, right? Transforming it into a neighbourhood health service. This sounds very similar to David Cameron's whole big society, where we ended up paying taxes and then we ended up having to also feed each other via food banks as well. It's that sort of thing, because the idea is, so Wes Streeting has got a 3-point plan. Let me work you through them. The first one is to move care from hospital to the community. You know what that means. That is more care in the community, us taking care of each other, right? Yes, Greg, Wes Streeting is indeed gay, which is one of the least problematic things about him, as far as I'm concerned. And the second thing is they say that Labour wants to focus on prevention rather than treatment. That's exactly where the assisted dying bill comes in, right? Let's prevent this happening so we don't have to treat them. And they want to, as I say, switch from analog to digital services. Well, the moment that they've done that, you know what that means. Of course, the whole structure that they're working on has to be digital. And the idea is that they will supply these gadgets to patients, for diabetes patients. There's also smart rings, which will allow cancer patients to apparently track vital signs. The rings have already been rolled out in Greater Manchester for some patients dealing with lung, bowel and blood cancer. And it's said to help patients track their heart rate, their temperature, their physical activity level. And it all sounds good, doesn't it? But Tamsin, I have to agree with you. This sounds like the transhuman agenda the government produced a document about recently. Yes, hope, love and peace, all linked to the NHS app. And do you remember when we had the NHS app, that app before, the track and trace, and it was Dido Harding, wasn't it, who'd had to leave, I think, quite hurriedly from, was it Talk? And she made an absolute killing, didn't she, that woman? Probably quite literally. So she was obviously in charge of it, because she was also in charge of elements of NHS England at the time. Baroness Dido Harding, that was her name, right? British businesswoman, life peer, who served as chair of NHS Improvement from 2017 to 2021. And billions, and I mean billions, was spent on that ridiculous track and trace. And actually, I discovered yesterday that, you know, these fact finders, like Full Fact and everything, who is checking the fact finders, please? Because somebody tell me, because they denied that at least 30, they were denying the amounts, right? They were denying the amounts that have been spent on track and trace, but actually the government's own records contradict them. And it turns out, so what was originally spent was, the government originally spent £22 billion on track and trace. Where have we heard that sum before? Isn't £22 billion the black hole that Rachel Reeves said we have? Maybe that's where it all went. Maybe it was the track and trace. Anyway, they then allocated a further 15 billion more to it. And it was hopeless. It was absolutely rubbish. Yes. So a guy living an unhealthy lifestyle is health minister. Weird times. David, a lot of the health ministers around the world are obese. I don't want a health minister who's obese. No, I want somebody who takes care of themselves. Track and trace was a huge distraction and a psyop, and it cost us an absolute fortune, didn't it? It was absolutely disgusting. So obviously, on top of the smartwatches, they're all pushing and promoting these fat jabs, very dangerously so. Not the data that is necessary. And you have people like Jenny Murray, who used to present BBC's Woman's Hour, and now she writes for Daily Mail, and Alison Pearson, who writes for the Daily Telegraph. And they're like, you know, oh, look, we've taken these fat jabs and never felt better. It's going to revolutionize the world. I'm paraphrasing them. This is disgusting stuff. Stop promoting this. As somebody who formerly had a food disorder, you can't mess around with stuff like that. You really can't. Because honestly, it's like, Jenny Murray is a perfect example. She was like 25 stone and she ended up having gastric band surgery. And she's ended up starting to put the weight back on again. Yeah, because you have to change up here. It has to be a lifestyle change. There is no quick fix. There is no quick fix to losing weight. Not really, not in the long term, right? Yes, fat jabs is making lifelong patients, as you can't come off of it. MK Ultra, that is an excellent point. Yes, it is. And, you know, the thing is, all of this is about state tracking you, and it's not about patient care. And I am appalled by it, to say the least. Lifestyle change, that's what you need. And the thing is that I don't look down on anybody who's overweight, because I know how hard it is. Food is a very emotional issue. It really is. But this man, Wes Streeting, don't trust him with our health. Don't trust him with our health at all. Now, I want to move on. I want to welcome our first guest, really interesting individual. You know, we have interesting guests around here. We don't mess around. His name is Sunil Sharma. And I know that some of you may be aware of him as a commentator, but I'm bringing on Sunil because he and I are about to have a conversation that I think is worthy. There you go. Let's bring him on. Good morning, Sunil. How are you?
Morning, Sonia. I thought your start segment's so good. Couldn't agree more with the whole thing about state control. It just seems more and more, it's all just a gateway for that. And I think it's funny enough, I was talking a lot about the dangers of anti-racism yesterday at an event. And for me, it just comes down to the same thing, which is the state just wanting more control. Our previous government did it, and this government, I have no doubt, would probably try and take it to another level. But yeah.
Absolutely. Which is why we need people like you who are prepared to speak up, step outside the status quo, not conform to the ridiculous globalist agendas that are taking place. But first of all, Sunil, tell us a little bit about what you do at the Global Conservative Coalition.
Yeah, so really briefly, I got into politics quite young. I used to help my dad a lot. He was a local level councillor, this is more than 20 odd years ago now. Kind of stayed interested. At the time where I really got involved, my dad was a local level councillor, and he was at the time the first, or one of the first ever immigrant conservative councillors back when the Conservative Party was actually a bit more conservative. So kind of just stayed involved, stayed interested, went to university, work in finance full time, still do. And then I kind of started my own group with the idea of connecting conservative parties across the globe to basically come up with ideas in terms of what does conservative mean in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, really trying to push as we move away from the European Union just after the post-referendum, trying to make a much more better stance for Britain having its own trade rules, trade laws, and just comparing to other kind of how other countries have done it. And from that, I've just ended up doing a few media appearances, and it's kind of gone from there.
A few you have indeed. I think you're a brilliant commentator. I think you're a welcome fresh voice. And I think one of the conversations that we want to have today is about how the left likes to base itself largely on identity politics and people's identity and victimize people. And Sunil, if you don't feel like a victim, they sure as hell want you to. It's the most bizarre thing because they're always talking. And I come from the left. I was born and raised and on the left. I am now politically homeless. I literally can't trust anybody, Sunil, because they all are part of a globalist agenda and thoroughly untrustworthy. But there are principles that are important that the left seem absolutely determined to abandon. And one of them is, as we say, the whole issue of identity politics. They rest largely on that. What is your position on it, identity politics?
I think identity politics, a lot of it is even to people of color or non-white people, it's just degrading. Like, there's nothing more I would find offensive or annoying if somebody said to me, you can get a job based on your skin color. Because my first answer would be, well, am I not good enough on merit? Like, it's a really bizarre experience. And I was saying this yesterday, I think maybe because although I was born here, my parents weren't, I think you feel extra passionate in some ways because you can almost see what life could have been like if I wasn't born here. So I'm so lucky. My parents would say to me, they're both Indian, born in India. My mom came very young, so she probably doesn't have the greatest knowledge of India in general. But she would say to me, and my dad would say to me always, that you're so lucky to be born in Britain. You're British first. You have a job to really do something in this country, and what we do at home, or race-wise, is what you do at home. But you leave these doors. You're a British man, and you have to go out there and get a good job and get educated, blah blah. And I think what identity politics has now done is try to make people like myself or my parents talk more about race when we're not really interested and we don't really care. And I think most people don't actually care. I think it's causing more division. I think the idea is like some of the more socialistic globalist way is just to kind of divide us and then easier to conquer. I think it's just about lack of ideas. I think, you speak to the more traditional people on the left 10, 20 years ago, they actually had some ideas and they had, that even may disagree or whatever, but there were some clear principles. Now, I think they're all just being destroyed. Identity politics should not be political, should not be involved in political organizations. And I think it's just I think it's just a combination of just like a lot of you said this morning to me, it's control, and they really have failed to understand that most people don't want to be victims. Most people want to take control of their own lives and make their own decisions. And when you talk up against it, or especially if you're an ethnic minority, then I think they really have problems, because they expect every single person who is of color to conform to this kind of, we can help you, we can save you. And when you say, no, we don't want to be saved, we want to make our own decisions and win on merit, which is why a lot of people maybe in the 70s and 80s, I think, came to this country, because this country was a country where you could go from being poor, working class, middle class, to upper class, rich, whatever, in one generation, which I think we don't talk and celebrate enough in this country. We're constantly saying how bad it is, and I do think it is going to get worse in the next few years. But at the same time, we're so lucky in this country where our social mobility is amazing. And I know it's a lot harder than maybe it's been for the last 10, 20 years, but I think sometimes we forget that in this country. And it seems like a lot of the globalist agenda is to try and make us forget that and drag us down.
And I agree, because, and also a lot of the people who seek to make you a victim, the moment that you won't accept that, they become some of the most abusive, threatening, smearing people around, like calling you every conceivable name. I've talked with Black friends about this who refuse to conform to the whole idea of kind of like critical race theory or any of that sort of stuff. And the moment that they say, I'm not part of this, I'm making my own way in life, they are then turned on and called everything humanly possible. And I think that it's very interesting to see, isn't it? So it's really about making you conform to this victimhood status, right? And I agree with you. Let's be more of a meritocracy, because the opportunities are there. And I do understand that not everybody starts off from the same place. I get that. And some people need more help than others, which is why I pay my taxes, because I want to be able to help people who are vulnerable, who may need a help. All of that is good. But somebody like you, clearly, you're accomplished, you're more than equipped. How insulting. You're probably better educated than most people out there. So how insulting to you is it when people want you to be portrayed as this victim?
I hate it. Honestly, I actually find it almost in some ways more like racist than a racial slur. Like,
Yeah.
when somebody says you have to think a certain way and act a certain way, and I find that just bonkers. At least with a racial slur, it's like you could say it's ignorance, it's whatever. But this is like mind control. It's
Yes.
bizarre, and like I cannot understand how that's good for the country. I think merit is one of the great things this country has been built on, in terms of it is really hard, and people do need, I think, more help now in terms of climbing up the social ladder. It's definitely a lot harder, but it's still one of the most amazing things about this country, that we have been largely based on merit, where you can do amazing things in this country. And I've seen it with my parents, and I've seen it in other families, but it seems like now it's just an obsession on terms of making everything about race. And it's
Right.
I always say, if you want to see the real racists in this country, it's not the people who constantly on the media will talk about the far right. It's if you're somebody who doesn't conform to the hard left, or doesn't conform to the identity politics, that's when I think you'll see the real almost the real racial side of
Exactly
these
that.
people. But you'll rarely see it from, you may see ignorance, you may see all these sort of stuff, but it's very rarely racism. To actually say to a group of people, you should be thinking a certain way, you should believe in quotas, you need my help, you need this kind of this you're a victim, I think it's really degrading. And I think it's, unfortunately, what's disappointing is I've seen it happen with a lot of liberal, maybe middle upper class London based white people who are really pushing this agenda, and I cannot understand it, because the only thing I can think of maybe is a lack of purpose in their own lives, or I cannot understand it.
Exactly that.
I've seen them really push this agenda, because I think if you speak to a lot of ethnic minorities, most people just don't really care about race that much. But it seems to be a massive push from that specific group of people, which it just seems like they have no concept of the rest of the country or working class people. I don't think they really care, to be honest. And I think that's the way they do a lot of these policies, and identity politics for them is a really big deal. But for the most of this country, I don't think it is.
This is an interesting comment. Tamsin says identity politics also hide elite and wealth privilege. And I think there is a lot of truth in that. As a former activist myself, the amount of middle class activists I met, and there's nothing wrong with being a middle class activist unless it's a sort of hobby, right? A hobby to make yourself feel better. Right, then there's a problem with it, really. And I think that is part of the problem. We saw that all with Black Lives Matter. A lot of that was driven by very white middle class people, and over again, not necessarily people who actually have the lived experience. Right, you have a lived experience of your parents coming from another country, growing up in a predominantly white Christian country. You know what that means. A lot of these people who are so apparently advocating for you have not a clue, and they've got it completely wrong, and they're creating more problems. How do we overcome it, Sunil?
I think doing what you're doing, which is amazing, and so many other people just talking out against it. And, we are a country based on Judeo-Christian values. That is the reality. A lot of Western civilization is. And, it's an adaptive environment. It's allowed for people with different faiths, different skin colors adapt, and that is largely based on Judeo-Christian values. So I think we should be really a bit more stronger in that, and saying that we are based on Judeo-Christian values. I think we need to be a bit more proud of being British. We're always talking about bad things. I think a lot of people in this country don't know what Britain means, or we kind of seem to be scared to talk about anything good about Britain. We'll always talk about what's bad about it. I think there needs to be a lot more national pride into this country, because I think the big change now compared to maybe 20, 30 years ago with the migrants that were coming then, that because the numbers were a lot lower, the mass migration numbers were generally a lot lower, it was these people almost forced to adapt to the Western culture, which made sense. It made a much more nicer environment. Now, because the demographics changed so much, a lot of people don't feel the need to adapt. So now we're sitting and we're asking what even is Britain, especially in some parts outside of London. So I think having a much stronger criteria for what Britain means. I had something recently really good, which I'm gonna copy, probably not say as well, but about loyalty and attachment. So a lot of ethnic groups that come into this country, you can notice it maybe in sport, in cricket or whatever, they will support the previous country where their parents are from or where they're from, which is fine. But I think if you're a first generation person born in this country, you should have loyalty to this country. You may have attachments to India, Pakistan, wherever you've come from, but your loyalty should be to Britain. And that should be loyal to the flag. I think we need to go back to a lot of these basic principles that we would have been taught at school 10, 20 years ago. Now talking about it's become political. You mentioned yourself, you belonged to the left previously, and I think a lot of stuff we've talked about today should not be political. We should not be discussing this as right or left. It's just basic common sense. But I think what they've done is they've made this political. They've made this really a toxic kind of thing to say. And on the BLM point, the moment I turned off BLM, if you went on their website, you could see exactly what they were trying to do. It was not a activist group. They had a whole manifesto. One of the manifestos.
They did.
Yeah.
Quite shocking. Not just to fund the police. Obviously, it was absolute trans activism going on there as well. It had very little to do with actual Black people, other than the Black people who were running it and taking all the money. So it was really quite corrupt. But Sunil, you do realize that almost everything you've just said would literally have you cast aside as a sellout, right? And that is the thing. I think that it's so important to have voices like yourself, because we actually need people to be able to stand up and say, don't you be putting your issues onto me. I have my own issues to address. And integration is an interesting one, Sunil, because that is obviously, there are problems with that at this moment in time. For example, so at this weekend coming, I think Tommy Robinson has got his Unite the Kingdom march in London as one example. Now, me personally, I don't think Tommy Robinson is capable of uniting the kingdom. And I'm not entirely sure who is, if indeed anybody is. But integration is clearly a problem. Where do we start with that as well? Because what obviously happens is when people come into the country, they end up going into communities where people are like themselves. So things become very ghettoized as well. So again, how do we deal with something like that?
We have to control the numbers. I think first and foremost, the system needs to be a lot stricter, because I think. I keep going back to this point, but I think the 70s and 80s, and I think some of the viewers will know, listeners will know it better even than me. But I think the people that came on then were a lot more adaptive because the numbers were just less. It's just, you know, like you just said, you now you'd go to regions where you know that there's a massive, it's just what you do, right? You do it as a Brit going abroad. You go to places where you know there's other Brits, if you know that you're going to be there for a while. And I think that's, but in this country, we've got actual ghettos of places where these people go. There's no need to conform because you're in almost a different part of Britain that's unrecognizable from 20, 30 years ago. So there's no need to try and adapt to Western civilization. It's horrible for the long term of this country. So I think the numbers have to be controlled as the first point. I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say.
Oh, it is, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's bizarre because, you know, I always have this conversation. We're a finite piece of land, as in Britain has only a limited amount of space. We where do you want to start? So I think maybe speaking English would be a good start. Okay, that cuts down the figures by not a lot because a lot of people speak English. So, you know, where do we go from? Okay, let's say no criminals. That takes it down by another %, if that. So you've got to start from somewhere. And it just seems like there's no real, everyone will say we're going to stop the boats, which is good. But again, that's not a massive population of people that are changing what we're talking about here in integration and multiculturalism, which is essentially failing. So I don't know. I think I'd have a much more points-based system. I know Australia's had its problems with it, but the idea that makes more sense to me, where if we have a shortage of doctors, let's say, then it's easier for doctors to come to this country. If we have already lots of people in manual labor jobs, for example, then maybe we make it harder for those people to come in. I think the bigger focus should be on, there's a lot of people in this country that are not working. And the reason our unemployment rate is low, and Rishi Sunak did this, and Sakir is going to do this, and the next person will do this, is the unemployment rate is a bit of a lie. It shows you who is trying to work and it hasn't got a job, but it misses off all the people who are actively not trying to work. And I think what we should be doing is trying to get those people back into work. And I think that will really get our economy going, and as opposed to importing people from across to make our GDP look better, which is what we're currently doing, and we're going to keep on doing, fortunately. But I think there's some really simple solutions. Whether they'll actually be acted, I'm doubtful. But I think that there has to be a much bigger emphasis on the amazing things of Britain. I hate the fact that in schools now we're constantly talking about how the British Empire 24/7 and how negative it was and the horrible things we've done.
Right.
I think creating a culture of real anger amongst people, parents, is damaging. If you're a white child in school, the confidence, because every day you talked about white privilege, even though white boys are the group of people who are doing worst academically at school, which is horrible because they're all going to go into the workforce. They're the biggest majority of people in the workforce. That's awful for me as a brown person, because if I want my own business and in this country, then I know the productivity is going to be lower. If my next employer is, the chances of the next company I work for is not going to be as good. So regardless of skin color, white boys doing as bad as they're doing right now, it should be all over the news. We should be talking about it. We should be saying how we should be helping them, but we're obviously not, because it's not a culturally cool thing to talk about.
And it is, as I say, so refreshing to hear your voice, and you know, for our viewers it is as well, because we need to hear more of this. This is exactly what we need to hear more of. I did an interview with Dr. Simon Elmer last week, and he was talking about the whole idea of the Great Replacement, which of course has been reduced to a white supremacist theory, but it's actually a UN policy. And actually, you're absolutely right. It's the small boats are actually the least of the problems. It is what is actually being officially allowed. And what Simon realized through the figures that he had pulled together was that at the rate we're going to need to build a city the size of Glasgow every year to be able to accommodate new immigrants. And also, one of the things that he pointed out, again, right? I mean, you yourself said there should be some substance to the people who are coming here. Obviously, if people need help, like genuinely need help, we should give it to them 100%. But a lot of the people we're dealing with are economic migrants, right? And we already have problems with our own infrastructure, obviously. And I talk as somebody who's absolutely part of a multicultural society and love it and applaud it and really do very much enjoy it. But I also understand that there is a very serious problem taking place here. And so that is exactly what I'm so glad you came on this morning, Sunil, because I think you offer a really important, not only an important point of view, but your rationale is good and well considered as well. So we need to integrate more. We need less immigration. We need white people to stop patronizing others. It's all of these things that you're asking for, really. And presumably that is what your organization stands for.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And on the point on immigrants coming to this country, look, the 70s and 70s and 80s was very different to what we are now. So, there we did have a problem in terms of, I would say, we needed more labor force, right? That the requirements of then are completely different. And now we do not have that problem. Now we have almost the opposite problem, where we have too many people in this country, or we have not enough people, not enough infrastructure to support it. So I think people need to stop looking at the standards of the 70s and 80s in terms of the way integration was there. Also, the numbers were a lot less. And I've stood up for people like, even, I've not agreed with a lot of everything she said necessarily, like Suella Braverman or other people who've said some of these comments. And the first thing people would say to people like myself and her would be, your parents are immigrants, so how can you make such a comment? But my argument would be 70s and 80s were a completely different circumstance to what they are now. We
Yes.
needed a bit more workforce then. The labor was nowhere near as strong. Now we have infrastructure problems in this UK, where the normal Brit, the average Brit, is going to suffer because of the impact of mass migration. That is not okay. That's not why people came in the first place from those generations. So I think we should really not be afraid to address it. And I think, if I'm being completely frank, I think it's easier for me to address it by the color of my skin, because I think if I was a white person in the ages of above the age of 50, I would be so worried and scared to speak on any of this, because
Right.
the first thing anyone would say is you're a racist. I think if you say exactly what I just said in the last 10, 20 minutes, whatever, I don't think I would, actually, if I was over that. And that's, again, horrible for freedom of speech. It's horrible for our country's values. And I think we need to really move away from that.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We greatly appreciate it. Really, I think that you bring such levity to such a very important conversation, everybody. If you haven't already guessed, this is Sunil Sharma, and he's from the Global Conservative Coalition. Take good care of yourself, Sunil. Thank you for joining us. Have a lovely week.
You too.
Wonderful. And I think we absolutely need more speakers like Sunil. We do. Thank you, Nick, for organising Sunil to come and talk to us. And let me catch up with the comments. The measure of a man lies in his heart, says Shug. Wow. One smart man. I keep clicking on the wrong. Well, I love this gent. Brilliant mind. Well, if do not accept, then they need to seek asylum in a Yes, absolutely. Right. But hold on. Let me just see. There we go. That's a lovely one, isn't it? I love this gem. Brilliant mind, says Chella Maguire. I'm coughing and spluttering, which is why I've only got one guest today, but I've got plenty of news still to come. Really good to have a conversation with him. Really good. Really enjoyed that very much. Yes, indeed. And it is so damn patronising, isn't it? I hate that. As a mother of a mixed race child, I hate hearing this kind of conversation. It is totally patronising. My daughter, as one example, has done everything off her own bat. First at uni, she took a company of people to Edinburgh Fringe. She financed it. She got backing. She's won game award. She won a game award as the future star of tomorrow. She did all of that off her own bat, and certainly because we believe in a meritocracy around here. But like I say, I understand that not everybody starts off from the same point, and some people need a help up, but not in the patronising way that very white, very middle class people often think they do. Right. Let's move on. I want to talk about this young man, Liam Payne. This is one of the last pictures that was taken of him in the lobby of the hotel he was staying in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Liam Payne, of course, former One Direction star, lead singer of One Direction, primarily, put together by Simon Cowell as part of the X Factor. They were originally 5 solo singers, and Simon Cowell put them all together. And more curious information has emerged about Liam's last days, Liam's last hours. And can I say that just because it's not adding up doesn't mean that you need to start trying to make it add up yourself. 2 and 2 will never make 5, right? I absolutely loathe and detest those people online who see something like this and they see another big news story and they assume that they have to be linked, right? Just because Liam Payne a couple of times made comments about how he thought Diddy was odd and not really particularly pleasant doesn't mean Diddy took him out. Stop being ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, people. And I hate that kind of clickbait nonsense. I really do. And where's the proof? It's awful linking him to Diddy, right? Where is the proof that there's any involvement? These people need to control their whatever. that whatever they're overdosing on, they need to control themselves. And not everything is linked. And it actually does a grave disservice to people experiencing real injustice, real grief, when idiots online try to make it so. Right. So let me just talk about what was happening with this poor guy. Hotel staff are now being investigated for allegations of supplying him with drugs. Vigils are being held around the world. One Directioners are formidable fans, no joke. And I remember this because I was once called in to show that picture. There you go. You can see me. There's me. There's Rylan. There's Eamon Holmes and there's Ruth. Eamon Holmes and Ruth obviously were married and they're now estranged and heading for divorce. But I was called in by one this morning to comfort One Direction fans when One Direction broke up. I'm not kidding. Like, I am not kidding. So me and Rylan were there to take calls from One Direction fans who were absolutely heartbroken and gutted. And it was supposed to be fairly light-hearted. But actually, the fact is, teen girls are really, really obsessive about their idols. And I know because I was one. And I loved Duran Duran. Before them, I loved Basic Rollers, but I loved Duran Duran. And I, you know, probably at that stage, I would like given my life for one meeting with Simon Le Bon. Teen girls are extremely obsessive, and they put so much onto their idols. And so I can understand that this will be extremely disturbing for a lot of young girls dealing with this. Not because this is part of their childhood, of their teen years, right? New Kids on the Block, says Marie. Got you. I know how I felt when Jello Biafra promoted the Shug. I know how I felt when Pink did. I was really upset. I liked Pink. I don't anymore. Yeah, so we were giving. So I know what these One Direction fans are like. Absolutely, I do. So let me just bring Liam back there. Oops, no, that's not what I want to be. There you go. That will do. So yes, so as I say, hotel staff are now being investigated. And then there is the case of what appears to be two prostitutes who were in his room shortly before his death. There was, it was said that he was arguing about money in the foyer. Now, here's where it gets really weird, right? He's supposed to have left around about £40 million to his son Bear with the singer Cheryl Cole. And according to reports, including police reports, he had no money and he wasn't able to use his card, which is odd. We now know why he was in Buenos Aires. He was trying to get to Florida to be reunited with his girlfriend who had left 2 days before, his American girlfriend. And there was a problem with his visa because he had a history of drinking drugs. He'd been in rehab. So he had to go through a series of tests, but he was given the all clear. And it was fine. He was allowed to go, but he had to wait out a few days, right, until he could go. And then it would appear something really weird happened within like a space of about 10 minutes, because even though he was having a meltdown and the staff had called police and said when he's awake, he's breaking things up and he's on drugs and all this stuff, right, something else happened in that brief period. So something is odd. Something's very odd. What's that? Don't have false idols, says Crazy Bunny. And also, can I just say, I happened upon the dead body of the full dead body of Liam Payne on X yesterday. It just awful. Elon Musk has to get a grip of this, right? It was awful. I'm haunted by it. That has to be too much, surely. I do understand about freedom of speech and everything, but somebody's dead body on X for clicks and likes is disgusting. It's disgusting. Craig, it's so awful. I was in shock. I was like, what have I just seen? And the problem is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So yeah, he was in Buenos Aires for clearance to join his American girlfriend. And as I say, there was all these kind of series of events that took place. And Simon Cowell, who discovered Liam and built him and the 4 other 1D members into a global multi-million selling pop band, has become something of someone who's under the microscope right now. And rightfully so. About bloody time, frankly. About time. And the thing is, so he's stepped down from, first of all, what they did was that they cancelled the current Britain's Got Talent auditions, or postponed them rather. And now Simon Cowell has actually stepped down from Britain's Got Talent. So that's going to be interesting. And the thing is fame is a horrible thing. And I've seen it up close. I have interviewed extremely famous people, and I've interviewed famous people from when they weren't famous to when they were famous, and I've seen the noticeable difference in them. And because we see one side, which is all beautiful and it's all well marketed and nobody has lines and everybody's smiling and nobody's on drugs and all those wonderful things. And but the reality is quite different. And often what happens is somebody like a Liam Payne, as one example, his solo career was not going anywhere. His record label had just dropped him, but he'd had this huge, massive worldwide fame. When you peak at 16 or 17, that's then hard for you to deal with afterwards, right? When you then go into years of nobody caring who you are and not treating you in the same way as they did when you were extremely famous. And with Liam Payne, he apparently had lots of money at his disposal, although not, it would appear, in the last day. So he was able to have, and lots of time on his hands as well when he became, when the split up. And so the thing is that when these artists have lots of time on their hands, they often turn to drink and drugs to fill up their days. Yes, Robert, what on earth is wrong with these scum showing pictures of that young man? Shame on them, disgusting. Absolutely. Yeah, celebrities are not much different from spy cops, says Ray J. I hear that. So Cheryl Cole, who was obviously had a son with Liam Payne, put out an extremely painful statement pointing out that he wasn't just a pop star, but he is, he's a son, he's a brother, he's a partner, he's a father. He's a friend. He was all of those things. And could people just be a little bit careful? I just think I don't want to regulate the internet. I want people just to be more blooming decent. Be more decent. Stop producing this clickbait junk and just add into the noise. I hate that. And right, Kat. Right. 31-year-olds with a child still don't fall from the third floor. They just don't. Kat, I hear you. I'm struggling to believe the official narrative. Okay? I'm absolutely struggling to believe it. And that's a good point, Frank. Absolutely. The universe is soup. Maybe too much energy. Yeah, I hear that. No, not Cheryl Crow. No, Cheryl Cole. I didn't say Cheryl Crow, did I? Treat your comments as if they're about your own loved ones. MK Ultra. That's a stunning thing to say. I mean, sometimes you have to be critical of people, right? I'm not going to treat Bill Gates as one example like one of my loved ones, but I really do take your point. Like when somebody has died in circumstances like that, give it a moment to breathe. Give it a moment to breathe. Yeah, Tweedy, her original name. That was when she boxed up. She was called Tweedy, if you remember, when she boxed up the black girl in the loo. Anyway, mother to mother, I do feel for her. I've never been a fan of Cheryl Crow. Did I say Crow? I think I did, actually. Never been a fan of Cheryl Cole, Cheryl Tweedy, whatever you want to call her. But I do feel for her because she's going to have to protect her son from the horrible, hideous things that are being said about his father online. But, and this is the problem. The problem is, with fame, is if you make yourself public, you generate interest in yourself and people can take that how they want. And especially after death, when you can be called every name under the sun and some that don't even exist because you can no longer sue them. It's no longer defamatory to talk about people once they're dead. But the fact still remains. It's horrible for loved ones to read and hear that stuff. But is it likely to stop? No, it's not likely to stop. Look what happened with Diana and the paparazzi, if you believe that official narrative. But certainly we know that prior to Diana's death, she was treated frankly, by like scum by the press. I've kept some of the original newspapers from around about that time. They harassed that woman and then suddenly they turned her into a saint on her death. But here's what's interesting is a source close to Liam said that he did not take his life and could have been saved. And it's like one of the most in-depth sources that has emerged. Talked to the Mail on Sunday and actually said that if an ambulance had been called when Liam was acting out downstairs, because what happened was apparently they took him back up to his room and just left him there, right? After he'd been acting out. And if an ambulance had been called for him, then it's highly likely that he would have been saved. And the source said Liam didn't have to die. Liam didn't want to die. He had promised us all he would never commit suicide. He was looking forward to the future. He was certainly looking forward to the future because moments before his death, he was working on a remix of a One Direction track. That is not the mindset of somebody who's about to kill themselves. I mean, I do understand drugs and depression are a horrendous cocktail, can have alarming results. But still, I think it's really interesting. And the fact that he was waiting, for his visa to be renewed, he was working on a new remix. And all of these things are very future thinking. They're future thinking. Rock Lover says Cilla Black's death was suspicious. I think she was going to tell lots of things about Kitty. Interesting. Yes, didn't she like die in her, I can't remember, was it like Portuguese apartment or something on the balcony or something? Christine, I think that could be it. Maybe like others, he had no support when he needed it. I don't think he liked himself. Oftentimes, these people haven't had an opportunity to get to like themselves, especially when they're plunged into fame at that young age. What's it? Photo of the scenes often released to confirm fabrication, says Edward. And I understand that as well, Edward. But I can see no kind of big agenda attached to this. Not particularly, but could always be wrong. Gutted about Liam Payne. You're so right. Your music journalism background is much appreciated. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that, because a lot of the people who are making this kind of clickbait stuff, they have no idea how the music industry functions, right? They automatically assume that everybody in the music industry are pals. They're all linked up together. No, they're not. Half the time they all hate each other because they're all rivals and they're set against and pitched against each other. Rachel was obsessed with John Taylor from Duran Duran. Me too. I used to love his lip gloss and everything, and the way his hair. Do you remember he had that white, didn't he? Had that white streak, right? Loved him. Yes, Mike, that's absolutely true. We actually don't know anything, do we? We don't really know anything that's happened. So what we do know is his ex, Maya Henry, who had called in the lawyers the day before he had died, had also written a fictional book. She'd published a fictionalized book based on her life in the years she was in a relationship with and engaged to Liam. And it's rather horrible. And it's about, she described, so what she's had all these people under fake names. And it was said that she described the physical and emotional abuse that she'd experienced when she was with Liam, including chasing her around the house with an axe, hitting walls next to her head, shattering glass tables, forcing her to get an abortion, sending pics to her family. All of this was oftentimes people will write fictional accounts because they daren't publish the truth. So it's all right, Mikey. I'm not sure what you did, but it's fine. Psychosis makes you into a totally, this is important what Lisa's saying here. Psychosis makes you into a totally different person. My daughter honestly thought she could fly when she went through it. Spent a year on high alert, just tried to stop her. And I think that is more than likely about what happened. Right there. Lisa's hit it right on the head. And it's possible that he was a horrible, dark character. Any of these things are possible. Oftentimes, fame creates monsters, right? That is reality. Oftentimes, fame creates monsters. Shug, the Les McEwen story, or McCowan story, I think we used to say it, but it could be wrong, was heartbreaking. That was Les was my Les was my idol when I was at primary school. I had 5 pairs of Bay City roller knickers with their faces all across it. My mum brought me the whole roller kit. I had tartan trousers, tartan socks. I even had tartan shoes. Like, we went all in my family for the Bay City Rollers. Yes, the BCR singer. That's right, absolutely. And he, along with other members of the Bay City Rollers, were being abused and raped by men around. Yes. Awful, horrible stuff. If you're intending for your child to go into the music or entertainment industry, please protect them. Please protect them. Do not hand them over to a handler, because that handler will likely handle them in a way that will be to their detriment, right? Craig says, this is a good point. The X Factor generation used and abused. Yes, and destroying music. Yes, that's true, Brawlbox. The chances are he's a lovely guy when he was not on drink or drugs. Absolutely. It impacts us all one way or another, doesn't it? Absolutely, it does. I really don't. Teresa says, I really don't understand why anyone would actually want to be famous. You lose so much. You do. But there's power in being famous. You could change a lot of stuff for the good as well, actually. So there are good things to be said about it. But I suspect this is a story that's going to run and run. Yes, I do. I'm struggling to breathe, people. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to last on here. So you have to just bear with me at the moment, because I will, even if I'm like this again on Friday, I'll still show up. It just might be for short periods of time. So just to say, I see that, you know, the C19 period, right? I want to move on to something else. C19 period, what it brought forth were all these hypochondriacs, right? Who suddenly saw germs here, there, and everywhere. It was quite funny. When I was at UK Column on on Saturday, lovely Charles Mallet introduced me and said, yeah, on her show yesterday morning, you know, she was all full of cold and everything. And so I kind of started off the talk saying, what's great is I'm in a room full of people who doesn't think I'm infectious. That's quite good. We need a parallel industry, says Soul Sound. We must be the same age. Duran Duran was my first ever concert. I was obsessed. Adam Ant was my first ever concert. We are probably the same age. I'm 60. I'm proudly 60. I'm proud to say I've survived 60. I didn't think I was going to get to 30, where I was living my life. Yes. So these COVID hypochondriacs. I wonder if I've uploaded this picture. This has gone viral online. This is my hometown, Cirencester, and it is queues and queues for people waiting at the doctor's surgery for COVID and flu jabs, right? And as I say, one of the legacies of the COVID years is groups of hypochondriacs who have forgotten that the common cold exists and immediately declare they have COVID, right? Grow up. Grow up. You were fooled. I know it's hard to admit it or even accept it, but you were fooled. Politicians and media lied to you. They do not care about public health. They did not care about public health, which is why they were able to push the C19 narrative. And this screenshot, I was like, oh, God, no. Cirencester is such a lovely town. It's full of lovely people. And they're not all sheeple. All the people in Cirencester are not all sheeple. So this was like, oh, God, why do that? So I felt the need to just kind of say on social media, please, can I make it clear or something like that? Not all the people in the town are, you know, like this. Because I know they're not, right? I go back, visit. A lot of my family are still there. But it's absolutely ridiculous. One day there will be a study of our people, and we will be seen as a type of kind of lost civilization, right? Not because we wandered away from the rest of civilization to build a better existence, but because we lost ourselves mixing with other citizens who were so easily forced into compliance, right? That creates in us some kind of lost civilization. We need to pull it together, people. We need to pull it together and each one teach one. Tell as many people as you can about these jabs, as many people as you can. And obviously one lawsuit after another now is coming out and revealing a great deal about what many of us already knew. And I take no great pleasure in seeing that Sir Chris Hoy has, have I got anything here? No, probably not. That Sir Chris Hoy, Olympian, many times Olympian, has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. I'm not a major sports fan, so haven't followed his work, but I did recall when his name was mentioned. I was like, wasn't he like a major promoter, jab promoter? And yes, he was. Back in 2021, certainly. He was an ambassador for UNICEF's Give the World a Shot vaccine aid campaign, saying we'll only ever be safe when we're all safe. And I take no joy out of people with cancer diagnosis or any kind of diagnosis, no matter what they've done. Actually, there's no joy in it for me. I just wish that people would be more aware, right? And there's Chris certainly tweeted enough about it, and one of them was an image of a Black woman being given a shot, saying it's time to roll up our sleeves and protect the world against COVID-19. Join me in supporting Crowdfunder UK and UNICEF UK's vaccine aid campaign, because we'll only ever be safe when we're all safe. Go on, give the world a shot. He wanted to give the world a shot. That is what Bill Gates said. Bill Gates said that we would only ever be safe when 7 billion people had the shot. Well, we're supposed to have 7 billion people. So that's everybody. That's mandating the jab. So, and then, of course, there was the news that not only is Chris Hoy terminally ill, but his wife's multiple sclerosis has worsened. So none of these things are great for them. So I wish them well. I really do, because I'm not like the other side. You remember what that other side were like, right? They wanted all manner of horrible things happening to people who were questioning C19. Horrible things. Ostracize us from society. Don't allow us even to get medical treatment. Do you remember? You remember these crazy, crazy people? I'm not like that. I want these people to be okay. And for the most part, right, our side is the side that is actually kindest, because we didn't raise up our voices in order to create more problems. We raised up our voices because we could see a problem and we didn't want people to be harmed, right? That was the reality. We are team humanity, says Marcuson, my music producer. Marcuson, of course, is the man behind Wake Up jingle with Sonia Poulton. Yes, we are team humanity, Marcuson. We are. Most fell for it, Mikey. They did. They absolutely did. Even the strongest can get it narrative. We have no chance. Get the jab, says Edward. Yes, Ian. Andrea, the new jab for losing weight. I can't go into the actual details about it on YouTube because YouTube have a thing called medical misinformation policy. And I got my first strike for talking about Andrew Bridgen in Parliament, talking about excess deaths. And YouTube deemed that that was medical misinformation. That was at the time a representative of the people, a voted member of Parliament talking about a debate. And I got a strike for that. So YouTube are extremely totalitarian about sticking to official narratives. But I'd already commented on the weight loss jab earlier in the show. And the bottom line is, as someone with a former eating disorder, that is not the way to go. Absolutely not the way to go. And don't trust them anyway, and will not ultimately solve the problem, and probably all about just putting money into their mates' pockets like they did before. Possibly. Bijan says one of what's that? One of my mum's carers is being pressured to take the new COVID booster. Is that she does or she doesn't want to take them, but fears losing her job? Any advice that anybody can give about that? Well, jabs are not mandated, are they? Right? I know they did in certain professions, certainly caring professions, which is absolutely obscene. Yeah, they say she'll be taking the booster to protect the patients. If anybody. Ray J said YouTube should rebrand to Yugo. If anybody can help, Bijan, please. Can anybody assist in the comments? Perhaps direct to quit the job. David, I'm not sure that is a solution for many people, but I take your point. It's a problem, right? It is a problem. Right. Let us move on. Wasn't it great and glorious? Well, it was for me anyway. See, Charles Windsor, heckled by an Australian politician, accusing him of genocide, shouting, "Give us our land back," and F the colony, in a confrontation on Charles and Camilla's tour down under. I love our Australian cousins. This is not the first time they've done stuff like this. I absolutely love it. I love it. Yes, HK, very exactly that. Why don't they make more healthy food instead of making people fat? With crap food available everywhere. Absolutely. Sausage fingers. Oh, Charlie boy. Yes. No is the most powerful word in our language, says Mels. And usually the first word we learn as babies. Yes. Yeah. Solsan says, funny how many people don't say King Charles. Oh, I'll only say it for clarity in order for people sometimes to understand who I'm talking about. But mostly Charles Windsor. That's it. That will do. That's enough. You know what I mean? Like, who is he anyway, other than somebody who's taking huge chunks of money for doing very, very, very little? I think he'll probably have the shortest term as the king. That's my feeling. And I received an email from the Scottish Union for Education, who informed me that a 9-year-old child in England has been sent to a prevent re-education camp for being a potential extremist. Now, apparently what happened was that this child was in a classroom and there was a lesson about heroes. There was images of Taylor Swift, Martin Luther King, and Adolf Hitler shown to the children with the question, which one is your hero? The little boy picked Adolf Hitler. Because of this, the teacher reported the child And the child was then reported to prevent the anti-terrorism program. Now, it's difficult to know what was the thinking or the rationale behind this, frankly. Presumably catch them young, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. But the bottom line is this kid probably thought Taylor Swift's not my hero. I don't know who Martin Luther King is, and Adolf Hitler is the most famous. That might have been the reasoning behind it. That might have been the reasoning. Or he might have agreed with what Mike J is saying at this moment in time. Re-education camps, Tamsin. Sent to a re-education camp to stop him saying things like that. There's so many questions to ask about this. I'm trying to find out from them. I've sent them a message because I'm trying to find out for them if I can speak to the parents. Because I think that's really important. But why would a teacher think it appropriate to put a terror label on a 9-year-old child? Why? Emma, I am not kidding you. I am not kidding you. This has happened. Monarchy started out as a protection racket, but now it subcontracts the government to run it. Got ya. Total nutter. Cat, I think that probably was the actual reasoning behind it. He could have been joking. He didn't know who any of them are. That could actually have been it. But yes, Chris, geez, what happened to teachers in my days? We'd have laughed and maybe had a quiet word. Yes. But also it does tell you, doesn't it, that it's very clear. They want you to believe that Taylor Swift is a hero, a heroine of modern times. Taylor Swift is just somebody who London appeared to come to a standstill for. Sadiq Khan had an artist make a new tube map only for Taylor Swift for her hits. She had police escorts at the behest of her mother, who said she wouldn't play at the concert. She didn't get Metropolitan Police escorts from the airport. Taylor Swift is uber rich. Pay for your own bloody security. I'm sick of it. Sick of it. Intuition says Taylor Swift is on the dark side. Whether she is or she isn't, she's got far too much power. I mean, I know she can write a good pop song. Pop songs mean everything in this world these days, right? Brandy, honey, and hot water for Sonia. You were brand new by Friday. Thank you, Markuson. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. What is it about Taylor Swift? Something is going on with her, says Katie. Yeah, because also don't forget all that stuff with Keir Starmer as well, right? He met her, free tickets. Can you imagine an outing for the Starmers, right? Free Taylor Swift tickets and an outfit for your wife bought by a man who isn't married to her. That's a Starmer outing, right? These pop stars are all puppets. She doesn't write. Jacqueline, she writes her lyrics, doesn't she? Pretty good she does. Because she had this kind of publishing fallout with Scooter Braun about it, didn't she? But I do agree that she's there for a reason, isn't she? She's an agenda. Anyway, bottom line is this. And no 9-year-old should be sent to a re-education camp. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Can I blow my nose, people? Hold on. Oh, no, I'm not going to blow it because it will horrify you. It will horrify you, people. Barbara says, join the vaccine control group. Bijan, that might be somewhere you can get some good advice and information from. Emma says she's a grown woman who acts like a 13-year-old. Yeah, I don't really believe that relationship, right? Remember there were those papers leaked saying it was kind of like her and Travis Kelce. It was all set up. And both of them turned into these like global icons. Shut up. Get away with all that nonsense. Right, moving on. I'm not going to last much longer, people. You know I'm not. Hello, Paul. Paul is one of my lovely patrons, and he thinks the whole Victoria Taylor missing person thing is curious. Paul said, I know you briefly touched on this, Sonia, but surely this is one too many not to be thinking about serial killers. Victoria Taylor is a British woman who has now been missing 3 weeks today, I believe it is. She was last seen at an address in Moulton, North Yorkshire, 9 a.m. on Monday, 30th of September. She's not contacted her family or friends since. Police later traced her final movements on CCTV, which captured Victoria buying a soft drink at a garage at 11:35 a.m. on the day she disappeared, before a final sighting was recorded at 12:30 p.m. and saw her walking towards a riverside. And police are working on the idea that she's gone into the river. Another one. And as Paul so rightly says, goes into detail, says the pattern and wording from the mainstream media are nigh on identical. Entered the river seems chillingly simple wording for such an event, like they are just walking to their deaths. All smells extremely suspicious to me, and even more so that the MSM are not being suspicious. I hear you. Yes, Tamsin, all these people in rivers, and there's more. There's one that's happened in Sunbury, right? A rower entered River Thames morning of 11th of October. Visible police presence around Sunbury Lock. Surrey police said they were still searching for the missing rower. I haven't got an update on that. So, you know, we're hearing lots. It is primarily in the UK. It would appear it's primarily women who are going into rivers that we're hearing about. But I think Paul has a good point. I think it's a good point. I think when a pattern happens, we need to notice it. Yes, synchronized soul, another water death. Now, maybe that, right. Yes, Mike, I take your point. I take all your point, lovely people. I get it. Yes, it is. It is absolutely. And I think that is curious because obviously, symbolically, water means a great deal. Great deal. Not least, some people talk about when you enter water, you're kind of reborn, the whole idea of being reborn. Yes, Louis, I do recall Claudia Lawrence from York, still not heard as anyone else. No, lots of people, they just disappear, don't they? They just disappear and that's it. They just disappear off the map, never to be seen again. Susie Lamplugh. Where is Susie Lamplugh? I remember Susie Lamplugh because I was working for local newspapers. I was actually working for the Fulham Chronicle when she went missing, and she went missing in Fulham. So she was like constantly front page news for us. So it's quite shocking stuff. What we got? Girls are hottest. What are you talking about, Frank? Frank, stop being silly. Right, email from lovely Linda. Good morning to you, Linda. Linda was really happy that I talked about her beloved friend, Robert Bob Green, and his campaign for justice for Holly Gregg. And I did the other week, didn't I? When I was talking about Alex Salmond. And Linda said, it's comforting to know that his dedication and decency have not been forgotten. She said, Bob spoke very highly of you and even on his deathbed urged me to follow your work. That touches me so much. I learnt so much from Robert Green. He's a brilliant man. Linda is a supporter of our show, which I greatly appreciate. She says the show is brilliant. She hopes it continues to flourish and provide ongoing success and stability. And she said, there are not enough words to express her appreciation. Linda, you've done enough. You're a sweetheart. Thank you for letting me know about Robert and his thoughts. I was very fond of him. I was absolutely heartbroken when he died. He was somebody that I felt able to talk to a great deal about some of these things, because some of the stuff that we cover is so dark that it's really nice to be able to talk to somebody who understands it. Rest in peace, Robert Green. Absolutely right there. Absolutely. Oregano is a good detoxer too. Are we talking about detoxers? Is this trying to get me back on my feet again? Is it? Yes, somebody, I see somebody said that no, there's not going to be any 11-11 today. You're damn right, people. You're absolutely damn right. And can I refer to our live chatter, Rock Lover? Rock Lover, he posed this question on X yesterday. And it's about this lot, about this bunch of thugs. And he said the reason, remember, Bill Gates, Larry Fink from BlackRock joined Rachel Reeves, Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, in 10 Downing Street last week. Keir Starmer put out a tweet about business and everything. We need to know what took place there, right? Why is it okay for Gates and Fink to rock in and we don't know fully what goes on? So FOIs at the ready. But Rock Lover posed a good question. He said the reason, well, it wasn't a question. He said the reason for Bill Gates' visit to see Starmer is Gates is peed off. We are refusing his fake foods and vaccines. It's why they want everyone to register birds. They included pet birds like parrots, because if they just said chickens, we would figure it out. Absolutely. So what I'm asking is, why do you think Bill Gates and Larry Fink were in Parliament last week? Please tell me either in the live chat, in the comments afterwards, or email me or message me on social media. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Why do you think they were in Parliament last year? Because we have a right to know. 100% we do. Let me look at some of the comments here that are on social media. Can I pick them up to make sense? What's this? Oh, Hugh. That's about something else. That is literally about something else. I will look at that later. So yeah, what do you think, people? Why do you think they were there? Why do you think they were there? Plotting. Oh, HK Very says plotting the medicalization and positioning of UK population. Here's Rock Lover. Hello, Rock Lover, darling. Fox said, Fox is always on it, right? Fox says, Gates said in 2020 that the next pandemic would be in 2025. So maybe he came here to arrange it. Sam Fam wants to know who elected Epstein's regular. And Milford said they run the world. Well, they certainly run the globalist world, don't they? We have to fight back. Oh, this is funny. Adrenochrome delivery. I mean, I can't even laugh because if I laugh, I'll actually start coughing. You know how when it's on your chest, right? You start to laugh. Can't do that. Yeah, Bill Gates is a wrong one. Crazy bad vibes from him. Rachel said, Keith Starlin needs a new funder for his wife's dresses. I love you people. I absolutely love you people. You're funny. And what have I got? And Greg said, because Fink and Gates are middlemen for the parasitic globalist elite. Absolutely. I hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear. And breaking news, Bill Gates has lost a lawsuit up to this point. He will appear in a Dutch court. And victims of the C-19 jab scandal have brought a lawsuit against him. Right? This is some interesting stuff. Because what happened was Gates recently filed an incident against 7 Dutch plaintiffs who wanted to take him to court because they accuse him of a torturous act as a participant in the project The Great Reset. The hearing was on September the 18th, 2024 in the District Court of Leeuwarden in Friesland, which is in the Netherlands, and the verdict was on October the 16th. Gates, who did not appear before the district court on September 18th, was represented by a lawyer. And he stated that he believes that a Dutch judge is not competent to judge him because Gates is an American citizen. Guess what the Dutch judge found? We are competent. And Gates, it looks likely that they're going to drag Gates into a Dutch court. Now, of course, he'll probably keep sending his representatives. But the bottom line is this, is that at least there is some movement on this. He lost it. He lost the first part of the hearing. And that is important. I was reading a translation of the judgment. And basically, the judge announced that Gates was in the wrong. That the Dutch judge does have jurisdiction. He is absolutely the Dutch judge is more than capable of judging Bill Gates. And you know why Bill Gates is upset? Because it's out of his jurisdiction. Somehow it's out of his jurisdiction. And that's why he's upset. So well done, you all. And I've been picking this up from independent media, Freebirds Media. Congratulations. Good work. Bill needs jail. Universal jurisdiction. Says George. Absolutely. Yes. What have we got there? So Messenger Boy Kia getting his instructions for the next narrative to be pushed, says Paul. I hear that loud and clear. Loud and clear. And Jan says, Gates is top of the pandemic and climate change agendas, a front man for the globalists. Absolutely. It's a bit like sending an assistant, isn't it? You know, I mean, the thing is, Bill Gates is not actually he's not that smart. He's able to string a few words together and make it sound as if he's smart. He's not that smart. He's bought his way into influence. It's that simple. That's what's happened. So there you go. Anyway, so that's an ongoing case in a Dutch court. Well done to all you people involved. The ironic thing is that it is often these people who have been injured through this who are the ones who are forced to take action. And they are often very vulnerable and unwell as a consequence of what has been done to them. So we shall see. Bill needs jail, says Tamsin. I might have read that out once, but hey, what's wrong with saying it several times? And of course, this coming weekend is going to be interesting. as Tommy Robinson himself has re-entered the country now, I believe, for a London march he has planned, uniting the kingdom. It's there's a counter demonstration by so-called anti-fascists planned for that same day. Of course, tinderbox conditions are being set there. And as I said before, I don't believe that Tommy Robinson is the person to unite the kingdom. He's created so much division. He primarily represents a demographic of people, but not lots of people. But he is able to mobilize people onto the streets. And I'm not going to do a Keir Starmer and start demonizing people, because there will be people there who are not any of the things that they are accused of being, but they are just concerned about immigration and other matters. And I see that Lewis Brackpool, who's been on here before, he's done an interview with Tommy on the day of his return to the UK. And Lewis asked him a number of questions, including about the upcoming rally, the Southport riots, immigration, about Israel. Now, of course, one of the things that Robinson is quite accurately accused of being is a Zionist. We know he's been funded by Zionists, no doubt about that. But a lot of people think that Tommy Robinson is nothing but a state player, right? I think that I have softened towards him more than I used to, and that was as a consequence of watching his documentary and seeing what his family had been put through. And I definitely don't agree with a lot of what he stands for, but I do also understand how a Tommy Robinson came to be. I get that. I do. And I do understand that some of my viewers very much support him. And I understand that some of my viewers very much loathe him because he is a divisive character. But I consider him the other side of the coin from Nick Lowles. Do you know Nick Lowles from Hope Not Hate? Are you familiar with him? He's basically Tommy Robinson's nemesis. Nick Lowles' job is sort of dedicated to endlessly snitching on people about what he perceives as them being far-right fascists or anti-Semitic or Islamophobic. And the problem is a lot of very good people get caught up in this generalization of other people. Generalizations are not entirely representative of all of the people who are likely to go this weekend, right? But I do see Tommy Robinson and Hope Not Hate as two sides really of the same coin. And I'm not convinced any one of them has the solution. No, I'm not. And you may disagree. You really may disagree. But what I find disconcerting is I would imagine Tommy Robinson is almost certainly going to be arrested this week because first of all, he allowed a banned film to be shown, which was contempt of court straight away anyway. So he may not even get to the march in the first place. But Nick Lowles is really interesting. So Nick Lowles he was formerly of Searchlight. Anybody remember Searchlight? Searchlight was kind of it was an anti-fascist publication. And here's where it gets interesting. Let me just make this large so I can see it. So now, so he left Searchlight, formed Hope Not Hate. He is the chief executive, and key people include people like Ruth Smeeth. Now, Ruth Smeeth was very much behind and involved with the whole idea that Labour had suddenly become anti-Semitic. And one wonders why Ruth Smeeth may be like that. Oh, here she is. Here's Ruth Smeeth. And she's a former Labour MP who was also part of the Labour Friends of Israel. You can also see Tom Watson there. And they are with former Israeli politician Isaac Herzog. And obviously, as we know, and what the other lady here, Gloria Pina, who is it Pina? She used to be an ITV breakfast reporter, and then she went to GB News, but she's a former Labour MP as well. But there they all are as part of Labour Friends of Israel. Everybody who listens to me knows I'm completely opposed to politicians being involved with anything such as Labour or Conservative or Liberal Friends of Israel. It's wrong. These are lobby groups behind it, and these people become compromised. It's that simple. So those are some of the people, for example, behind Hope Not Hate, right? So it's a man who used to run Searchlight, and it's Ruth Smeeth, who was very much part of the whole kind of Labour is anti-Semitic. But while meeting up and being part of Labour Friends of Israel. But ASA Winstanley, who is from the Electronic Intifada, I know I've pronounced that wrong, publication. He's also the co-host of a podcast, but he's been harassed a lot. I think he was arrested last week. He writes extensively about the problems with Zionism and what's going on and how compromised people are. A lot of people who are questioning the whole Zionism and the impact of Israel are being arrested by British police. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. But let me go back to Nick Lowell's, because I think it's interesting. So Nick Lowell's, this is where I think it's wrong, is that Nick Lowell's is it would appear is being treated differently to a Tommy Robinson. And the reason I say that is, let me just remove that so as not to distract us, is Nick Lowell's had tweeted reports coming in of acid being thrown out of a car window at a Muslim woman in Middlesbrough. Absolutely horrendous. And yes, that is absolutely horrendous if it was true. If it was true. And there was a community note put on it on X saying the reports of an acid attack in Middlesbrough have been denied by local police. And they did deny it. But the problem is the day after, there was a video made of young men and they were actually quoting what Nick Lowell's had said as a group of young Asian men. They were saying, we're British, we live here, this is our country. I'm paraphrasing them, but they were like, and our women are having acid thrown in their face. Now, I want to say, first of all, thank you, lovely. Rest in peace, X for Nutmeg on X. Nutmeg is absolutely brilliant tweeter who had tweeted that Nick Lowell's his tweet had led to these men then saying that. Now, bear in mind, last week, Lucy Connolly has been jailed for 2.5 years for a tweet which was said to have kind of started off riots and everything. Well, Nick Lowell's tweet led to these men, a group of men, saying, we're going to defend our right. Our sisters are having acid thrown in their face, and nothing has been done with Nick Lowell's. And I said to Nutmeg, do you have that footage? Nutmeg, being brilliant Nutmeg, has one of the best libraries I've ever seen, managed to come up with the footage where I could actually see with my own eyes these guys quoting Nick Lowell's tweet. It's not okay. Two-tier policing is not okay just because somebody claims to be an anti-fascist. Okay? As Nutmeg said, at least one man who was on the streets looking for trouble quoted his tweet to the media as his motivation. Nobody has ever said they did anything after reading Lucy Connolly's tweets, but she got sentenced to 2.5 years and he got nothing. I agree with Nutmeg. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. And it's not right. It's not okay. Okay? We can't keep having this two-tier situation. Right? Can't have it. I do wonder, Marcuson, if they will arrest him on the day to try to cause unrest, because that will be awful. It will kick off. Yes, it will. Christine said what Noel said is actually hate speech, right? How did he get in a position of power? How did he in a position of power get away with this? I don't know, Chris. I don't have an answer to that, but something seems wrong. It's not right. It's not okay. She saved all the right stuff. Nutmeg is great. I'm assuming Nutmeg is she, but I don't know that. But all I know is Nutmeg is absolutely brilliant and has been brilliant on X for years now. And just somebody that I can really, really rely on. So, okay, there's activity going on around me, people, as you can see, because you saw a shadow go in front of the light. It wasn't a ghost. I want to reassure you, it wasn't a ghost. Right, let's move on. Email from Colin. And I suspect Colin has answered the reason why Operation Grange, the investigation into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, is still ongoing. Colin wrote, "Hi, Sonia. I want to say how much I enjoy your shows. I haven't watched the live stream, but I catch up on YouTube. I am particularly interested in the Madeleine McCann case. Like you said, I don't believe it will ever be solved. It really is a massive cover-up. You would need to go to the very top of the establishment to find out the truth. One of the questions which never gets asked is, what do the British police do all day? Right. Surely there isn't enough to investigate after all these years." I hear you, mate. I hear you. "It's nice work if you can get it," Colin said. "As a conspiracy theorist, quote unquote, maybe they are there to ensure it never gets solved. Heaven forbid." Colin, I think you're probably right. Because as Operation Grange continues to tick over, continues to tick on, who can be held to account? Right? We can't file the kind of subject access requests or the freedom of information requests or any of the things that we need to know about all the people involved who kept agreeing to 14 million plus for a crime that didn't happen in this country and where there is no evidence of an abduction. So thank you, Colin. Very much appreciate that. And by the way, just to say, they are going after people's benefits big time. They did this 10 years ago. David Cameron, George Osborne, when they came together as Prime Minister and Chancellor, and Nick Clegg, of course, was part of the coalition government. And first people they attacked were people on benefits, right? They don't go after the billionaires who are squirreling away their money in offshore accounts. No. They go after the little people, right? And they're about to do it again. So the Labour government are planning not only to spy on all bank accounts, because that's one of the things that they want to be able to do. And they can now request to look into people's bank accounts, but it's not given. They want to just be able to do it when they say so. But on top of that, they want to be able to, if they detect what they consider to be an error, they want to just be able to take money fresh out of people's accounts without permission, right? What is going on? What is going on? And who's behind it? The crazy Liz Kendall. Liz Kendall, wasn't she like, she used to be in government, now she's returned. But these people are all the same. They're all the same. Globalists, Zionists, shills. Yes, they are. Sue me, Liz Kendall, because I know for a fact that you as a politician, you are subject to a greater degree of scrutiny in law than you think you are. I can say more about you than you think I might be able to, right? Because there is case law which will protect my freedom of speech, questioning who you are, what you're about. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Anyway, that's pretty horrible, isn't it? Pretty horrible. So Labour are busy, aren't they? Let's take away the winter fuel allowance from elderly people. Let's hand out fat jabs to get people back to work. So there's this automatic assumption that the only reason people aren't working or are unemployed is because they're overweight. Like, could you please get a grip? So they're going to have the fat jabs. Then they're going to have the NHS smartwatches. I do not like this cowardice new world that Labour are taking us into. I do not like it one bit, which is why what we do around here is even more important. Yeah, what happened to 10:30, Miss Poulton? I know, well, I'm in trouble to myself, aren't I? And can I just say, I have to say this before I go to the final point, and that was, who was this from? Who was this from? Sean. Sean contacted me. Sean sent me what I consider one of the greatest speeches I've heard in recent times. Okay, it was actually shockingly brilliant. Sean said, great program, very interesting, thought-provoking. I enjoyed it very much. Have you seen this or heard this really powerful speech? As I'm mainly Irish and my grandfather fought for Irish independence, events in Ireland always hit home. I found this speech moving, hard-hitting, and in a way very uplifting. It's always heartening to hear truth spoken plainly with no fear. And indeed it is. And that is on the LSB Film Productions channel. And basically, it's Terry McMahon's powerful speech where, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. It's extremely powerful. He covers most everything, including the issues of identity, culture, and how globalists benefit from it all while crapping all over working class people. He's very knowledgeable about much, including what is going on regarding transgenderism, vaccinations, Palestine, and how children are treated throughout. It's actually mind-blowing. It's so beautifully articulated. It's an absolute tour de force of a speech. And I will put a link to it in the description because it's that good. It's that good. And you deserve it. Yes, you do. You deserve it. Now, finally, before the final thing that I want to say, and that is I'm getting rid of ads. The plan is to get rid of them before Christmas. And because this is what I understand what my viewers want. We were looking at the demographics this weekend. Our viewers primarily are between the ages of 23 and 85. There's an almost complete equal split between men and women. And from all over the world, I was actually shocked, literally. America, Australia, all of Europe, and Algeria and Nigeria. And it just goes on. I was like, wow, so welcome. We are a true world show. And so the idea really is to get rid of ads and to bring in a team. This is my goal, and I'm putting it out there as an intention. I would love to start 2025 with a team to help me do this, which would mean a number of things. I will be able to increase our show days, because the aim is, the next step is to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's the next step. So over the next few months, I'm going to start fundraising for Wake Up. And the wonderful Suma, you may or may not know her, but she's somebody I trust very much. She's recorded a video to help me along. The thing about me, as anybody knows, I don't like to ask for money at all, even though I've been forced to in numerous areas over the last few years, including for the live stream, including for my legal affairs. But I promised a lovely viewer I will get better at it. So that's my intention. Help me build my team, people. We've got it. Numerous ways you can do it. If you have no finances, that's absolutely fine. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can send the video to your friends. There you go. Now, I want to play John's tune. Ready? I want to play John's tune. Let's hear it. John said, hearing the AI theme tune has inspired me to come up with something myself. John made this himself. I record stuff at home and never finish anything. Never play them to anyone. Weird, I know, but it helps keep me sane during these crazy times. I've struggled to comprehend the insanity of this world since COVID fully awoke me. If it's not your cup of tea, you don't have to feel bad. I thought it was lovely, John, and I want my viewers to listen to it. Ready, everybody? Let's go. Everybody. Let's go back. And is it? No, play. Why is that not doing it now? See, my life is never straightforward, right? I'm going to remove that and I'm going to add it again. Ready? Let's go. People. Oh. Ready? Let's go. Grand risings, everybody, come have your say. Sonia Poulton in the morning, starting off your day. Have a listen, it's the place to be. Sonia Poulton's here for us, but the BBC. Absolutely love it. John, thank you. I absolutely love it. I do. Fabulous, says Hope. And Cool says Hoax. The 70s are back. Yeah, I loved it because I can hear a minstrel playing in there. I love it. I love you too, Randy. And it's true, I haven't. I'm absolutely hopeless. I did plan to finish early today, but I'm just incapable of it. You all know it. So I'm going to end on this, right? You can't. Yes, you. You right there, watching this, you count. You matter. It's so easy to feel as if there is no reason for your existence, no purpose for you being here. You are just a number and you are just a name. None of those things are true, in my opinion, because I'm here to tell you that you count. You matter. What you think and feel matters. Your goals and ambitions matter. Why do some people feel that they don't count? Why do some people feel less than? Well, in part, we're schooled to think that we are mere numbers, that we are part of a pack. Conformity to make you compliant. And we all saw how that worked for C19. But school can also water down a child's personality, make them feel that the only way they can get on in life is by toeing the line. But that is nonsense. It's nonsense. Other reasons that some people feel that they don't count, that they don't matter, that they are insignificant is childhood neglect, rejection, abandonment, all manner of things. Even people who haven't realized how brilliant you are can harm you and make you feel like you don't count by raining on your parade. And that is why you have to be careful about releasing details about what you're working on, especially creative projects, because if you put it out too early to the wrong people and they say the wrong words, it can change your destination of it. Got to be incredibly careful. Oh, is not a number, says Randy. Pass 10 socks off, carry on counting. Oh, Evad said, I am not different. Mike said, God bless you all. Not counting, they count a lot. They want us to feel small and helpless, says Shug. Your lives always uplift me, says Stephen. I appreciate that, Stephen. I really do. even with a snotty nose. And so be really, really careful putting your creative aspirations out to other people who don't know how to handle them sensitively. Some people way too early will put on social media, I'm planning to do this, and then they find all this like a pile in of comments, and it changes the course of their direction. So just be really, really careful, because what you think counts. And why you have to remind yourself that you count, because there is a real power in positive thought. There is a real power in positive affirmation. This can help in shoring up a kind of strong psychological mindset. So even when you feel crap, like I do right now, you still show up and do your best, right? And the thing is that you need to protect yourself, because it can, bad words, even the slightest bit of criticism when you're coming up with something, can influence your self-esteem. It can alter your self-perception, of not only yourself, of those around us, about your world, about our world, about your role in it, all of those things. So affirmations are powerful. What you tell yourself is powerful, right? And the thing why they're powerful is, for starters, they serve as a counterbalance to the negative thoughts and doubts that can invade your mind. Right? In a world where kind of criticism, internal and external, is rampant, having a go-to set of positive affirmations can literally save your life, right? They will shield you. They will protect your self-esteem from that negativity that is shooting at you. And, the thing is, how many ways do you count? You're not just an artist or a creator. Are you a mother? Are you a father? Are you a brother? Are you a sister? Are you a grandparent? Are you an auntie? Are you an uncle? Are you a best friend? Are you a shoulder to cry on? Are you the person who always knows what to do in a crisis? All these people count. You count. The person your friend rings at 2 a.m. when they are fearful, you count. You count. The person who always pulls rabbits out of hats to resolve situations, you count. When people know they matter, and when others tell you you matter, it goes way beyond worldly values of productivity or materialism. It impacts your spiritual understanding and your psychological understanding. And such words of positive affirmation remind us that your value is not just external, it's within. It's not something that needs to be learned or earned or even proven to other people. It exists. Your value and why you count is inherent. It came with you. It arrived with you. Yes, it did. There you go. What's this? I'm the man from Uncle. I see you. How are you? Deborah, get better soon. I try to be positive, Deborah. I actually consider myself far more of a realist than actually somebody who's like an optimist or positive. Affirmation is within. You have to allow it, says our soul sound. Thank you, rock lover. That's very lovely. When a wild fox, it says, I'm a beautiful soul. When a wild fox followed her like a pet dog, that tells you everything. So I had a fox family video on YouTube. Absolutely. So remember, people, this week you count. Absolutely, you do. And there are some beautiful quotes about this. And one of them is from Alyssa Harris, who wrote, the moment you feel like you have to prove your worth to someone is the moment to absolutely and utterly walk away from them, right? And remember this, whoever counted you out can't count, okay? I want you to remember that. Keep stepping, and each step will take you closer to your tribe. Believe me on that. Thank you for being wonderful. Thank you for being here this morning. Okay, have a beautiful week. I will see you the other side on Friday. I will follow lots of your wonderful bits of advice there. And bless you too, Lisa. Love and respect is what matters, says Be Happy. I think that's a final quote that we should have on the screen to take us out this morning. Thank you all. I love you all. I'll see you Friday. Have a great week. Take good care of yourself. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for everything that you bring to the table on Mondays and Fridays. See you Friday. Take good care of yourself.